Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Indie Reads Aloud Radio. This is episode number 4. I am your host, Diana Catherine Plopa, and today we're going to be listening to a story written and read by Barb Pietron. Barb, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me.
This is super fun. One of the things I love about doing this podcast is I get to hear stories and meet authors that I never would otherwise. There are millions of books in the world. I can't possibly be expected to stumble upon all of them. So this is selfishly my way of getting to know you. So thank you for taking the time today.
Absolutely.
So let's tell you a little bit about Barb. Barb is the author of the indie fantasy series Veiled Existence, Soulshifter, Thunderstone, and Heart of Ice. Excuse me. Having a love for witches and vampires before they were trendy, she gravitates towards stories with supernatural elements both when she reads and when she writes. Although classified as young adult, her books are enjoyed by a wide audience, preteen through adult. Barb's novel Thunderstorm was awarded the 2013 Book of the Year finalist status by Forward Reviews, and before it was published, Thunderstorm was a quarter finalist in the 2012 Amazon Breakout Novel Award contest, winning a review by Publishers Weekly. When she's not writing, Barb works in two libraries where she is tortured by all the books she has yet to read. I suffer from the same anguish. She's a cult fan of the movies Labyrinth and Nightmare Before Christmas, and let's face it, who isn't?
Yeah.
And she is a fan of all things Tim Burton. Barbara lives in Royal Oak, Michigan with her husband, daughter, and a sassy cat. What is your cat's name?
Kit Kat.
Perfect. So welcome to the show. I'm so glad to have you here again. I'm excited to learn about a new author, and I love how young adult novels are becoming more and more mainstream for adults to read. So thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So what's the book you're going to be reading from today?
I'm going to read from the first book in my Legacy and Legend series, Thunderstone.
Excellent. Can you read us the back matter synopsis, pretty please? Give everybody an idea of what the overall story arc is.
Okay. Sneaking out at night, driving without a license, and falling for a guy weren't things 15-year-old Jenny expected to do while visiting Lake Itasca, Minnesota with her family. The guy, Ice, turns out to be the local medicine man's apprentice, and when he tells Jenny she's connected to the spirit world, her first instinct is to run. But after Ice's stories of a mythical underwater monster that Jenny allegedly released prove true, she realizes it's up to her to contain the beast. Jenny must first convince herself that she's able, and then save the locals, Ice, and ultimately herself.
Fantastic. I've been asking everybody, what was your favorite part about writing this book? Do you have a favorite character or a favorite scene?
Well, my favorite part about the book is the Native American mythology. I'm such a fan of all kinds of mythologies, but I love Native American mythology in particular.
Fantastic. And that's a topic that's not really discussed a lot in novels. So I'm glad that you're also sharing that knowledge with readers as well, giving them something new and different.
Yeah.
Okay. You're going to read chapter 1 for us today?
Yep.
Excellent. When you're ready, please read aloud.
Okay. Jenny was halfway back to the car when she heard the voice behind her. I'll double what you just paid for that statue. She knew the offer was directed at her. She hadn't seen any other customers inside the convenience store where she just purchased a stone statue, and her cousin was the only one at the gas pumps. Still, she kept walking, even quickened her pace a bit. The scrape and crunch of gravel on her left warned of the guy's approach before she saw him from the corner of her eye. Excuse me, sorry to bother you, but the statue you just bought? I'd like to buy it. It's important, he babbled while shuffling alongside her. Look, I'll give you 40 bucks. The guy thrust his hand forward with two $20 bills sticking out. Jenny's stranger danger reflex kicked her heartbeat up a notch. She glanced sideways, surprised to see a young guy, 17 or 18 at most, with copper skin, black hair, and startling blue eyes. Her lips parted and her breath hitched involuntarily. Wow, the guy was super cute. Her feet slowed, though her pulse continued to race as a new nervous energy replaced her initial alarm. Maybe she should hear him out. Buzz off, buddy. Whatever you want to buy, she's not selling. Her cousin Tyler suddenly appeared in front of her, and Jenny stopped short to avoid running into him. The guy raised his hands and held them out past his shoulders, the money still clenched in one fist. He gave Jenny a pleading look, but took a step backward. Tyler, Tyler grabbed Jenny's arm and propelled her toward the car. She shook off his hold on her. What's your problem? I saw him offering you money. Just get in and lock the door, he said. I'll drive. Overreact much, she muttered. Going back to talk to the guy now would be embarrassingly awkward, so Jenny got in the car. She was more than happy to let Tyler drive. It was better than him scrutinizing her newly acquired driving skills, but he was acting like a jerk. Not that that was new. With the door closed, Jenny glanced in the side mirror and saw the guy hadn't moved. Dang, the well-worn jeans, athletic build, and sun-kissed skin added up to rugged hotness. Only his downcast expression was at odds with his outdoorsy brawn. A pang of sympathy struck her as he shook his head and scrubbed his hands over his face. Tyler dropped into the driver's seat and slammed the door. Maybe you should consider jeans that aren't quite so tight, he said. He started the car and pulled away from the pumps. What are you talking? Jenny hissed out a disgusted sigh as she got his meaning. You're such an idiot. She dug in the paper bag she'd set on the floor between her feet. After plunking 2 drinks into the cup holders, she drew out a small stone statue. He wanted to buy this. How would I know that? A stranger waving money at a girl in the parking lot looks pretty suspicious to me. Besides, you went in to buy drinks. Please, he was probably younger than you. Tyler shrugged. What is that anyway, a stone cat? Well, it's not an ordinary cat. That's why I bought it. Jenny held the figure out. Look, it has horns. And check this out. Doesn't it look like it's painted with scales? Tyler glanced at the statue and grunted. The man at the store called it an artifact. Maybe it's valuable. That guy offered me $40 and I only paid $12, Jenny said. Try eBay and I'd get a cut since I chased the dude off. Jenny didn't dignify that with an answer. She might be $28 richer right now if Tyler hadn't chased the guy off. Tyler turned up the radio and Jenny let her head fall back on the headrest. Trees and marsh flashed by on either side of the 2-lane blacktop road. An occasional break in the foliage revealed dirt roads cutting through the woods, some which bore signs indicating residences beyond the dense vegetation. Jenny hardly noticed. She'd seen similar scenery back in Michigan, not where she lived in suburban Detroit, but a few hours north where her family went camping. Something about the incident at the gas station didn't add up. She was pretty sure now that was the same guy she saw on the phone in the back room of the convenience store. At the time, she assumed he worked there, but if so, why would he rush out and try to buy the statue she just bought? It didn't make any sense. Jenny could still picture his crestfallen face. He looked like a kid who had just dropped his science project and watched it explode into a million pieces. She fingered the statue's cool stone surface for a few moments, then slipped the figure into her pocket. The encounter definitely put a damper on her enthusiasm for the newest item in her cat collection. When she got back to civilization, she'd definitely Google cat with horns and scales to see if anything came up. As Tyler turned into Itasca State Park, Jenny thought about the beaded bracelet she'd returned to the rack after she spied the statue. She suddenly had the sinking feeling she would have been better off choosing the bracelet for a souvenir. What happened? Where is it? Ice recoiled from the medicine man, thrusting the dance stick he'd purchased from Hoglin's Gas and Goods out in front of him. The older man ignored the stick. The statue. What did you do with the statue? Nothing. I didn't get it. What do you mean you didn't get it? Ice backed up a step. He knew the medicine man would be disappointed, but he hadn't expected this kind of reaction. Rolf sold it while I was on the phone with you. He watched Nick pace the small room, his gray braid swinging outward each time the man spun on his heel. In the 5 years he'd studied with the medicine man, Ice had never seen him pace before. To who? Do you know? Did you see the person? Yeah, some girl. Nick, I tried to buy it from her, but when it looked like I'd have to fight her boyfriend, I backed off. You didn't sound too concerned over the phone. I wasn't concerned when we were on the phone. Then Nick stepped around Ice to the doorway, peeked into the hall, then shut the door to his office. He motioned Ice to a seat and dropped into the chair behind his desk. About 5 minutes ago, I noticed a hawk on my windowsill. Ice raised his eyebrows. The medicine man placed an object on the desk in front of his apprentice. The bird left this behind. Ice lifted what he at first thought was a rock. The smooth, dirty brown of one side contrasted with the varying shades of orange on the rough and crusty surface of the other side. Thinking back to some of the earliest lessons with the medicine man, Ice rubbed his thumb across a russet nodule and recognized a warm metallic element not present in stone. He met Nick's grave stare. Copper. Nick blew out a breath. The omen couldn't be any plainer. Copper delivered by a thunderbird? Especially after you called about the statue. I was afraid you'd stopped somewhere close to water. Too close. Ice dropped his gaze to the floor. Uh-oh, he'd screwed up big time. I'm sorry, I should have tried harder to get the statue from that girl. Ice, Nick interrupted. It's not your fault. I told Rolf to go ahead and sell the figures. He listed them over the phone yesterday. I just wasn't thinking when he said cat. Nick's assurances didn't have much of an effect. Ice had been in the store. He knew the statue depicted the underwater monster, Meshibeshu. He should have gotten the figure from Rolf first and then called Nick. A few years back, Nick had revealed the truth about the artifacts he collected. Authentic relics used in rituals and ceremonies maintain their connection to the spirit world. That connection could be tapped by anyone with the requisite ancestry. The danger was twofold. For a person who knew their own potential, the spiritual link could be harnessed for selfish and often unethical purposes. For the person unaware of their dormant capability, the accidental contact could prove disastrous. The question is, Nick said, leaning back in his chair, did the Thunderbird warn about the statue or about the underwater Manitou himself? If the statue is our only concern and the girl who bought it simply sits it on a shelf, we might be okay. I stayed quiet, allowing the medicine man to sort out his thoughts. We need answers. I prefer to be proactive considering the potential threat posed by the underwater monster. So I'll go to the Vision Quest Lodge and see what I can learn from the spirit world. Nick's gaze settled on Ice. Is there any chance you could find this girl? Ice started to shake his head, then froze. Maybe. How'd the drive go? Jenny's mom asked. How do you think it went? She grumbled, holding her hands up and glowering at the drips accumulating on the kitchen floor. Her jacket and shirt, wet from the waist down, hung limply over her waterlogged jeans. What happened? Tyler, that's what happened. Jenny kicked off her shoes and tromped to the bathroom. She peeled off her wet jacket and began to twist it into a bundle. With a heavy sigh, she paused, extracted the bizarre cat statue from her pocket, then wrung the jacket over the tub. If today was an indication of what this family gathering would be like, it was going to be a long, miserable week. What? She barked in response to a knock on the door. Do you want me to bring you some dry clothes? Her mom asked. Since she could hardly traipse around in her underwear with 13 other people in the cabin, Jenny told her mom which clothes she wanted. When her mom returned, she offered to wring out Jenny's jeans. I told you Tyler always thinks I'm around for his amusement, Jenny said. That's why I didn't want to go with him in the first place. She rubbed her legs with a towel. You know why he asked me to drive? So you could practice maybe? Or to give you guys something to do? No, his car's a stick. He wanted to laugh at me. Her mom didn't get it. She seemed to think cousins were automatically friends. Well, the joke was on him then, right? Since you know how to drive one. She wasn't going to let her mom put a positive spin on this. I hope you brought Band-Aids. I'm bleeding. Jenny dabbed her ankle with toilet tissue. Her mom rifled through the toiletries bag. How did you do that? On a rock when I fell in the water. We went to Itasca State Park, figured we'd check out the Mississippi headwaters, so we'd know what to expect when we do the grandpa thing. Remembering their purpose here in northern Minnesota dampened Jenny's urge to take out her frustration on her mom. She dropped an octave of venom from her voice as she explained that the headwaters of the Mississippi, which looked more like a creek than a river, were marked by a row of large rocks. Tyler crossed them easily and challenged her to do the same. It didn't go as well for Jenny. Look, honey, it's a family trip, and I realize everyone here is either an adult or a toddler except for you. Her mom picked up the Band-Aid tabs and threw them in the trash. It seems like you get stuck hanging out with adults all the time. It's been that way since you were a baby, so I'm sorry if I pushed you into the ride with Tyler, but he's at least close to your age, and I figured you were both old enough to get along. Mom, even when I'm an old lady, Tyler will try to make me look stupid so he can laugh at me. I doubt that. He didn't laugh when you fell, did he? Pretty much. Well, not at first. Jenny frowned. I probably had a strange look on my face because when I sat down in the water, I went all woozy, like I was going to pass out. She slid her legs into the dry jeans and then stood to pull them up. The water was that cold? No, I mean, it was cold, but not that bad. A shock to the system I would have expected. The dizziness was weird. As soon as I got on my feet, though, I felt better. Jenny shrugged. Anyway, once he saw I was okay, Tyler felt free to smirk. Jenny's mom stuffed the box of bandages back into the satchel. I'm sure he wouldn't want to hurt you or see you get hurt. You do realize he teases you because he likes you? If he didn't like you, he'd just ignore you. Jenny moved in front of the mirror and rolled her eyes at her reflection. Even if it was true, it didn't make the teasing any easier to bear. Her mom shifted so their eyes met in the mirror. Honey, Tyler just treats you like a sister. Now you know what it's like to have a brother. Yeah, it's fabulous, Jenny muttered, though the dry clothes were already improving her mood. She picked up a hairbrush and ran it through her hair. You may feel differently in 10 years or so. Her mom reached for the doorknob. I better finish slicing the tomatoes. I bet the hamburgers are about ready, she said as she stepped into the hallway. Mom? Jenny waited until her mom poked her head back in the room. You should have seen Tyler's face when I backed up his car and drove it through the resort. It was priceless. He definitely wasn't expecting that from a girl with a learner's permit. Her mom grinned. See, I knew learning to drive a stick would come in handy. Yeah, Jenny waved her off with a slight smile. She put down the brush and stared at her reflection. Even though her mom encouraged the drive with Tyler, it wasn't her fault Jenny fell in the water. It wasn't even Tyler's fault, as much as she wanted to blame him. No, it was her own fault. She'd listened to his assurances, let him convince her when she knew better. Hadn't she learned her lesson in 3rd grade? Never trust a boy. Ice felt like an idiot sitting in his car monitoring visitors to the Headwaters Center. The cup of coffee he sipped didn't help. All he needed was a donut or some kind of fast food sandwich to complete the stereotypical picture of a stakeout. When he'd agreed to apprentice the medicine man, Ice never imagined surveillance would be among his duties. But he had only one lead to the girl who bought the statue at Hoglin's Gas and Goods yesterday. As he'd entered the store from the stockroom, he heard her tell Rolf she'd be visiting the Headwaters the next morning. This morning. Although Ice arrived before the first employee showed up to the open center, he wasn't the first car in the lot. Dedicated exercisers preferred vacant trails. So far, Ice had watched 2 joggers finish their daily trek and move on. He slumped in his seat as a truck entered the parking area. It wasn't the vehicle from the gas pumps yesterday. Still, Ice studied the people inside. He wasn't going to chance missing the girl. About an hour later, he regretted drinking coffee, but maintained his post. Another 30 minutes and 7 cars later, A sedan, followed by a pickup truck, wheeled into the lot. 2 more cars trailed behind. Ice tracked a silver hatchback with interest. All 4 vehicles parked in a cluster, and as people piled out, he had a difficult time picking out who emerged from which vehicle. Not that it mattered. The honey blonde hair was a dead giveaway. This morning, the girl wore it loose, where yesterday it was in a ponytail, but Ice had no doubt about her identity. The large group unloaded various items and started for the trail. When the last person disappeared into the forest, Ice got out and followed. The overnight chill still lingered among the trees. Swish of feet through last fall's leaves accompanied hushed conversation from the people ahead. Ice's churning stomach made him glad he hadn't eaten yet. How would he nonchalantly approach her? She'd think he was some kind of creepy stalker. Ice hung back as the group reached a clearing. They stood staring up at a tree stump about 10 feet tall. A flat, notched-out portion served as a sign, which read in bright yellow letters, "Here, 1,475 feet above the ocean, the mighty Mississippi begins to flow on its winding way 2,552 miles to the Gulf of Mexico." Beyond the sign, the waters of Lake Itasca rippled in the cool morning breeze. To the right, the lake spilled over a trail of sizable rocks crossing a span of water, the Mississippi headwaters. The group didn't linger, however. They filed down the side trail, which led to a bridge about 30 feet downstream. Seats built into the bridge's side rails provided a place to set their various bags and coolers. Ice preferred to approach the girl when she was more sequestered from the group, so he left the path and melded with the trees to watch and wait. Great, now he felt like a creepy stalker. Included in their provisions was a boombox, and soon music wafted across the marshy area. Horns, jazz. The song wasn't quite "When the Saints Go Marching In," but the tune was similar. Next, Ice heard the unmistakable pop of a beverage can. He looked on with some amusement when he recognized cans of beer. Others held out cups to be filled with wine. What was going on here? Some kind of celebration? Ice stepped a bit closer, careful to stay concealed. As one of the men squatted down with a plastic bag and tilted the opening over the edge of the planking, Ice got it. Ashes. These people were here to spread someone's ashes in the Mississippi headwaters. Ice didn't make a conscious decision. He simply knew he couldn't approach the girl here. As important as his mission was, his respect for one's journey into the afterlife prevailed. He'd have to come up with a plan B.
Thank you very, very much. That was great. I was so captivated by your reading. It's super visual. I really enjoyed it. You're adding yet another book to my TBR pile. Congratulations.
Great.
Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So this has been Barb Pietron joining us today, and she read from Thunderstone. Thank you, Barb, for joining us. I'm really pleased you were here today, and I look forward to the next time you come back and read aloud for us.
Great. Thank you, Diana.